Hurricane Ian has made landfall in Florida. Obviously, appreciate everyone who has reached out to me and to my wife to just check in on us. We are not currently in Florida. We actually got the hell out of Dodge like a week and a half ago. A little bit of business, a little bit of the Rosh Hashanah holiday. I'm not Jewish, but my wife is, so we celebrate the Jewish New Year. So Shana Tova to all the Jew BBs out there. It's a very it's a weird week because it's very happy for the Jewish New Year, but then boom, here comes Hurricane Ian, and basically it seems like the apocalypse is nigh. So, but yeah, it's a strange time. Obviously, a lot of pressing stories happening, and obviously the one that is most concerning is a Florida reporter using a condom on their mic. Look, as a woman in today's day and age, you got to be prepared for whatever, all right? I'm just surprised that anyone could hear her with that condom on the mic. It would be really unfortunate if she just put it on and the mic immediately got malfunctioned. I mean, someone's been messing with those condoms, right? Oh man. So wait, hold up. Coolio just died? No. Coolio? See, this is what happens. Holy. Coolio just died. That is. No. At 59. R.I.P. Used to listen to him all the time in Pakistan, elementary school. Man. Oh, man. So, back to the news. Now, of course, that's not the most important story. The most important story, besides a reporter putting a condom on her mic, I mean, I would be if I were still a journalist, I would be out there. I would be the only reporter out there with a full-on big black dildo, in solidarity with the gays, right? No, but the biggest story, at least this whole shit show of this Category 4 hurricane barreling on Florida is the political angle, because that's pretty much the angle that everyone seems to live by and die by. Now you got this reporter from CNN, Steve Contorno, tweeting, as DeSantis prepares Floridians for Ian, he is urging residents to heed advice from the same local leaders he suggested they ignore during COVID, and praising a federal agency he previously alleged withheld aid to the state because Biden was playing politics. And Rory Metzger says, why does it seem so many people are rooting for a hurricane? Yes, that's exactly what it seems. You have the Daily Beast over here writing an article saying DeSantis cares about deaths from Hurricane Ian, just not from COVID. You have Ali Velshi and Joy Reid discussing climate change during the storm, saying we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that that's going to be the major cause for migration around the world and here in America. Do I really want to watch this clip? Do I really want to do that?
Just to pick up, I don't know if you could hear Bill.
Oh, God, it's a 3-minute clip. They're not listening to that shit. You got Amy Klobuchar suggesting that voting for Democrats will actually help stop hurricanes, saying that's why we've got to win. Let's see if we can actually get a little. This is much shorter. Oh, but of course I can't hear it because I muted the site. Let's unmute that.
On a bipartisan basis, we have done many things on a bipartisan basis, and one, the president never gave up. He is persistent. And two, you've got leaders in Congress like Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, as well as their Republicans that want to work with them, where we have been able to step by step push these bills through. And so I think so many times people counted us out, but we want to make clear we've got the backs of the American people. And while we have clear disagreements, we don't want, if the Republicans take charge, a number of them have been talking about an abortion ban. You guys know that. You featured on the show. That's why we've got to win this midterm. We just did something about climate change for the first time in decades. That's why we've got to win this as that hurricane bears down on Florida. We got to win in the midterms. We understand that, but none of that has stopped us from deciding we're going to put our differences aside and get some things done.
Okay, so I thought that was taken out of context in the sense that she was talking about we got to win this in relation to the abortion ban, but then she immediately comes out and says, "And we got to fight climate change. That's why we got to win this." As a hurricane comes barreling towards Florida, look, there is, and you know, this sounds very cynical, and it sounds kooky, but I feel like at this point we've sort of run out of conspiracy theories because all the other conspiracy theories have come true. But this one is kind of low hanging fruit because and it's kind of true. Like there are people out there who legitimately want the body count to skyrocket in Florida. They want the damage to be so bad in Florida simply to own Ron DeSantis and to try to, you know, hurt his chances of winning his gubernatorial reelection campaign this November and hurting his chances of running and possibly winning the presidency in 2024. Now, look, uh, I, I don't know where this mindset comes from. It's not like I look at New York and I think, oh, I want everyone in New York to die because I can't stand Andrew Cuomo. Like, no. If anything, like in 2020 when COVID was absolutely rocking New York City and killing tens of thousands of people in 2020, especially, it was not I didn't want. I hated. I started to hate Andrew Cuomo because he let so many people die because of his handling of COVID-19, because he put so many people, sick COVID patients, in nursing home facilities and adult care facilities that killed even more people, and basically tried to cover that shit up. It was the opposite. It was the deaths that and the mishandling of COVID-19 that basically led me to disdain and loathe Andrew Cuomo or Cuomo, just as a shout out to Jay, who's RIP in peace. But look, it would be one thing if if it just like existed in the vacuum, but and Twitter is not obviously real life. Um, but it just something really just doesn't sit right with me on this. And I am not entirely sure why anyone in the right mind would endorse a natural disaster via Hurricane Ian to basically defeat their political opponent. Is just this shit ain't a game. There are people who are gonna die. There are people who probably already have died. There are people who are. I mean, there was a boat off the coast of Florida that I think 3 people were rescued and 20 people are still missing. So I guess they're only presumed to be dead. I mean, this is real. This is real shit. This ain't a fucking game. I want to hear it happen. I want to hear what you Habibis in the chat have to say. I mean, this is. I don't want to have to like rant for a whole hour, although I can if you really want me to. Why am I going to Rumble? I want to go to Twitter. I want to go see the crazy shit that's happening right now. Everyone talking about Coolio. God damn it! Why does Coolio have to die? See, this is Naples, Florida. This is just awful. There's my co-host right there. He is unable to join the stream, but don't. It never leaves an opportunity to not shitpost. Saying, if you don't believe in climate change, how can you explain the wind and it changing directions randomly? No, I mean, let's just go back to that readout thing, just because I really want to see how bad this shit is.
Just to pick up, I don't know if you could hear Bill, Ali, but
I did, yeah.
there is a lot that has changed about the Earth that has made these things worse, right? I mean, these things are thriving because the water is getting warmer. And I think when we stopped calling it global warming for political reasons, but that's what it is, right? Our Earth is getting warmer, and there is just no doubt, I think, left that it is feeding these beasts.
Well, and where it comes out is in the intensity. The people say, well, there have been hurricanes for millennia. Well, that's true. But we sometimes get these ones that are so much more damaging and so much more intense. And then there's the complicating factor that in places like Bill was just talking about, the St. Johns River in Florida, Savannah, Charleston, like Miami, gets water that comes up on a good sunny day. That's climate change because water levels are rising. So on one hand, you have more intense storms because of warm weather and the patterns that cause these storms to form. And then you've got greater damage because we've got a rising water levels. And it's good that we talk about these things in the moment, because lots of times over the years when I brought it up, people have said, oh, now's not the time to talk about it.
Right.
Now's the time to talk about it because the only time people are paying attention to how damaging these things are. And that does mean taking into account how you build things and how you account for it, which is fine in places like Naples here where you can build stuff that's off the ground. But what about in poor areas where people don't have the money to rebuild? What about what happened in New Orleans during Katrina? So this is why we have to think about climate change in relation to severe weather, in relation to how people can actually mitigate it.
And by the way, Ali, we talk a lot about all of these things as separate stories. You do a brilliant job. If you guys aren't watching Belgium every weekend, you're really missing out, because Ali brings all of this stuff together. We're talking about when migration is happening around the world. A lot of that is also driven by this stuff. As these places that we've chosen to live, or where people have no choice but to live, become inhospitable, what do people do? They move.
Yes.
If it's inside Florida, when you've got to run from that water, you need to move. You need to move inland. You need to go inland.
Okay, just real quick, I'd like to point out here, because I don't think they see the irony of all of this, because given the fact that they think climate change is what's causing people to move. No, it's fucking authoritarian governmental policies like what they did during COVID that has caused the most amount of migration, especially within the country. Climate change isn't forcing people to move. It's basically people's freedoms. What the fuck are these people? I told myself I wouldn't curse. I know it's a family show. Let's just continue listening to this.
Katrina happened, people moved, they went to Houston. Some of them did not go back. We're not saying that's going to happen now. But the reality is that humans, we're literally running from the climate change that we're pretending isn't happening. But we're physically being moved around the Earth because of it.
It will actually be the single biggest cause of migration. We typically think of migration being caused by conflict and wars and things like that. In Syria, it triggered it in Ukraine. That's not going to be what it is. It's actually going to be migration because people can't move. Generally speaking, prosperous people can move first because they can afford to. But eventually, when the grain stops growing or the fields keep flooding, the poor people move too, and we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that that's going to be the major cause for migration around the world and here in America. It is really hard to live in places that get hit by tornadoes and get hit by hurricanes on an ongoing basis. You can't make a living out of it. So that is a really, really important and necessary consideration.
I gotta have you come back, because we could do a whole hour too on where people with money choose to live, because they choose to live in some precarious situations too that are low to the ground and are not enough off the earth here to survive this stuff. It's a whole nother topic though. We'll do that another day. Stay safe, my friend. You're brilliant. Thank you.
Bobby says the earth rotates, thus moving everyone around. Checkmate climate deniers. Look, I'm not saying people don't move because of climate change, but I think we underestimate the real causes of people moving and migrating to other parts of the world or other parts of the country. I mean, look, I'm not saying I moved because of COVID to Florida from DC. But I did move because of what initially was my wife getting a job down in Florida. I moved because obviously I wanted to be with her. And once I got there, thinking like, oh man, I haven't been to the Gulf Coast of Florida ever before last year. I got down there and I before going down, I thought, man, there's no way that like people live on like the Gulf Coast of Florida. Like there's nothing there. Like I grew up knowing only the East Coast, knowing Miami, knowing, the Space Coast, knowing Orlando, although Orlando's in the middle of the state, not really considered part of either coast. And thinking like, oh, that's where all the people are who is honestly living in the Gulf Coast. So we went down to Sarasota and thinking like, who the hell lives in Sarasota? But once I got there, like maybe like a day or two after, I understood like it clicked it clicked so quickly. It's like, oh, this is why people live here. I don't know what it is. It's something in the air, something in the soil. You get there and just like everything, you're at peace with everything. It's kind of insane. But yeah, I love living down in Florida. There's some people who tell me like, even like my mom being like, I can never live in Florida. Like, honestly, I don't care one way or another whether you decide you want to move to Florida or not. It's a great state. People drag it unnecessarily way too much. Sure, they're crazy people. I mean, look, look at me. I'm probably counted among them, but it's a good spot. It's a great state. Definitely don't take it for granted. So obviously, everything with Hurricane Ian, all the politicization that people are making about, climate change or Ron DeSantis, like, look, whatever your politics may be, I would want the best for you, regardless of what you think of me or anything else. So I think I feel like there are more people who think like me than think like them. There are not people out there who are
Very much
simply,
Ali Velshi.
oh God, sorry, that was a mistake. There are tons of people who prefer not to divide and actually want to connect with people. I mean, the fact that you have people like Steve Contorno trying to find this like hypocrisy from Ron DeSantis, talking about two completely separate things, one about COVID and vaccines and the other about a hurricane, something that Floridians are very familiar with. It's not like hurricanes have not hit the state of Florida before. I don't know where people are getting this, thinking that, cast doubt on what they're telling you about COVID, but make sure you trust them when it comes to hurricanes. Like, the two ain't the same. They're just not. And I don't know if this is like there are people who are saying, what's that Vinland's wife? What's her name? Hold on, I need to pull this up first. Look at this shit. This is Bill Weir on CNN, basically going after, blaming everything on global warming.
Ian is coming. Ian's here. John, we just felt a marked increase in wind speeds within the last 10 minutes or so. We were riding about 40, 50 miles an hour. It was hard to fathom that speed tripling in the next few hours, but we're now getting maybe 70-mile-an-hour gusts here. We're right at the point where US 43 heads across the Peace River here. I'm just in front of the memorial for Hurricane Charlie, which in 2004 devastated this town and sent a wake-up call to this community about the threats of living on the coast in a rapidly warming planet. As a result of that storm, they were the first community in Florida to put in a climate adaptation plan, a sea level coastal resiliency plan that they're, have been working on for years now, and this will be the test. It's hard to build power lines or building codes for 17-foot storm surge, though. That's the crazy variable here right now. No one has ever seen that, so we don't know what that looks like. But this is exactly what climate scientists have been warning about for a long time, and now we get to see it up close. John?
One thing I like to know is that there's no condom on this dude's microphone, so he's definitely going to get blown away by Hurricane Ian. I mean, this woman has a right, okay? If you don't want your microphone sucked and absolutely swallowed by Hurricane Ian, gotta wrap it up tight.